BTS News. Busan, the port city that was once a silent witness to Park Jimin's childhood, is back in the spotlight as the night becomes a turning point for two of the world's biggest K-pop stars, Jimin and Jungkook of BTS. Although the two have been friends for more than a decade, no one expected that one simple night in Jimin's hometown would become the setting for the most emotional, frankest, and decisive moment in their relationship. The evening was not planned as anything special. In the midst of the tight schedule of conscription, training, and restrictions on public interaction, the time they could spend together was something very rare. However, the opportunity came suddenly. Jungkook, who happened to be granted a short leave of absence, contacted Jimin earlier the same day. No fancy planning, no production team, no cameras. Only two friends decide to go back to where it all began. They met at a small tavern near Houndy Beach, a place Jimin used to frequent as a teenager. The owner of the tavern didn't even recognize them at first, as both were wearing casual clothes and face masks. But that night, there was a calm aura around them. An unusual calm, as if both knew that this meeting was different. Jungkook, with a deep gaze, sat across from Jimin while staring out the window. The waves rolled slowly, and the boisterous sounds of the night beach accompanied their chatter. Initially lighthearted about food, weather, and the times they became trainees. But gradually, the conversation began to change direction. Topics that had been on hold all this time, which they had never talked about on camera, began to surface. Hyung, Jungkook opened his voice, his tone slow but steady. You ever feel afraid of losing everything? Jimin paused for a moment, put down his chopsticks, and then looked at Jungkook with teary eyes. Yes, he replied at last. More often than I thought. Both of them laughed a little, but in the laughter there was a bitter tremor. For years they lived life in the spotlight. From a teenage boy who no one knows to a world icon. But behind the glitz, the honors, and the cheers, there is a silence in certain nights that only those who live in them can understand. Jungkook then continued, I regret not saying it often enough, that I always saw you as a strong figure. Even when you're broken inside, you still make everyone feel safe. Jimin grasped his teacup, trying to stabilize his voice. I'm not that strong, Kook. I just don't want anyone to get hurt because of me. Silence surrounded them. The sound of the glass in contact with the table becomes the only audible sound for a few seconds. Then, without warning, Jungkook reached out, gently touching Jimin's hand. You've saved me more than you know. You kept me going. Jimin's eyes were red. He held Jungkook's hand tightly. So are you, Jungkook. Even when I've almost given up on everything, your presence, it was the only thing that kept me from drowning. The words weren't spoken to touch the camera, weren't meant to be song lyrics, or part of a reality show script. They are the words of two hearts that have been carrying a burden too heavy, too long, and too deep, alone. And that night, they split it up. After dinner, they walked down the beach. The cold sea breeze did not disturb the warmth flowing between them. No bodyguards, no hysterical fans, just two figures walking side by side, letting the sand and waves of the night sweep away their footprints. Jungkook paused for a moment and stared at the cloudy sky. You know, I often ask myself, what would happen if we never debuted? If we are not BTS? Jimin looked at the same sky, then shrugged. Maybe we'll still meet. In different lives, in different forms. But I believe my heart will know you. Jungkook turned his head, looking at Jimin like the first time he saw him as Hyung, a leader, a protector, and also something he couldn't explain. I don't know how to explain it, but I think tonight I realized one thing. Jimin looked at her gently. What is it? I love you, Hyung. Not as a friend, not just as a brother. But it's more than that. It always does. The sound of the waves seemed to stop. Time seemed to freeze. Jimin could only look at Jungkook, his eyes quivering, his lips open, but no words came out. It took him a while to understand what had just been said. And when he could finally speak, his voice was quiet, almost like a whisper. Me too. All this time I knew. But I'm too scared to admit it. Jungkook approached, and for the first time with no camera, no spotlight, no public gaze, they hugged. Not a stage hug, not a happy birthday hug, but a hug from two souls who finally admit the wounds, love, and longing they have been hiding. That night in Busan, it wasn't just a night of nostalgia. It was confession night, night of courage, and the night when two hearts, all this time beating under the pressure of the world, finally beat freely with each other. The next morning, the two left the beach without saying much. But the smile that adorns their faces is the answer to everything. No promises are superfluous, no future plans are drawn up. Only feelings are finally released. AS news of the two being in Busan began to circulate as fans began to associate photos of the silhouettes of the two figures on the beach. The agency did not issue any statements. No confirmation, no denial. Maybe because not all love stories need public validation. Sometimes, all they need is a quiet night, a gentle coastal breeze, and the courage to tell the truth. And for Jimin and Jungkook, that night in Busan changed everything. After that night, time seemed to move at a different rhythm for Jimin and Jungkook. Back in real life, the two continue to live out their obligations as South Korean men in military service. Nothing has changed imperceptibly, but their hearts keep secrets that are now no longer painful, but warm and give new strength. Jimin returned to the barracks with a calmer expression than usual. Colleagues in his unit noted how his smile seemed more sincere, how he more often looked out the window at night, as if remembering something sweet. While Jungkook, who is known to be the most expressive among them, became more reserved. But not because of sadness, but because his mind is now full of one figure who finally has a special place that can no longer be denied. Park Jimin. Not that everything is easy. The love that grows in the midst of a harsh world and full of expectations like the Korean entertainment industry is something that cannot be carelessly indulged. They know that, and they don't expect everything to change overnight. But what has changed is them. Their hearts are no longer afraid to feel, no longer hesitate to give meaning to feelings that have been held back. In a letter Jungkook wrote the following nights not to send, but only to himself. It was revealed how deeply that night affected him. Hyung, do you remember the sand that night? I can still feel it on the soles of my feet. But what I can't forget the most is my heartbeat when I finally told you the truth that I didn't know if the world would side with us or not. But at that moment, the world disappeared, and there were only the two of us under the Busan sky. Meanwhile, Jimin wrote in his notebook something he used to do to calm his mind. Jungkook is not just a friend, not just dancing. He was where I could see an honest reflection of myself. In his eyes, I don't need to be perfect. I just need to be me. For many people, love is something that is indulged, displayed, celebrated publicly. But for Jimin and Jungkook, love is a quiet space where they can breathe. It was a night in Busan. Not explosive, but deep. It's not noisy, but it changes everything. A few months after that night, BTS was in the media spotlight again due to the news that they began preparing for a reunification project after their enlistment period was over. Rumors have sprung up, ranging from comeback specials, farewell albums, to secret tours. But one thing that caught ARMY's attention was that Jimin and Jungkook seemed to be mentioned more and more often in the same context. Whether in pieces of military mail, old photos that staff share, or even from small clues on social media. One of Big Hit's longtime staffers uploaded a behind-the-scenes photo from 2022, showing Jimin and Jungkook asleep on a studio couch, leaning against each other. The caption reads, "They saved each other before they even knew it." ARMY, who is notoriously observant, begins to recall moments in the past. From the way Jungkook always looks up to Jimin when performing, the way Jimin looks at Jungkook silently during interviews, to their expressions when talking about each other. All like puzzle pieces that now find the picture.